Good Minister, I have a number of questions for you. Is there any support for our payments for those who have no choice but to stay at home, Minister, because they don't have a childminder and are forced to use their holiday pay to cover them? Can we offer them a payment or compassionate family leave or whatever, on compassionate grounds? Any support for at-risk people who are still at work but would prefer to self-isolate and leave their jobs in the interest of their own health and safety and of their own family? And can the government advise if people who have applied for the pandemic unemployment payment and have or will receive the £350 payment weekly flat rate, will they have to pay back the difference if they have been overpaid? For example, a part-time worker who lost their job but has an average weekly income of €150 but is now going to get £350, will they have to return the 200 additional payments, Minister? And a lot of people are asking that question. I believe that this should be the case. I think it is unfair that people who continue to work are disincentivised to work as a result of this flat rate payment. And that is happening, Minister, to work as a result of the payment. I think when things have been sorted out, the Department of Social Protection, and I want to commend them on their Trojan work to date, and they should try and retain workers to the average weekly income rather than giving them such an overpayment. In saying that, I am glad that the rate has been increased from 250 to 203 to 350 because people needed that kind of an income. Again, I want to raise the issue of pay for student nurses. In this case, when some other students, Minister, a broad range of them, who have lost their part-time work, they'll receive 350. It is vital that we pay these brave student nurses adequately for their amazing work, as many of them are working as normal qualified nurses during the crisis, and some don't even have the proper equipment. Can the state consider the possibility of giving our frontline workers, and I mean the frontline workers, all of them, a tax-free income on their wages during this crisis? As an incentive, as usual, the nurses and doctors are working above and beyond, and the care workers and indeed assistants and attendants and the paramedics are working away above and beyond, and I think this would be a huge gesture of our gratitude to them. We all remember when these nurses took to the picket line 14 months ago for a pay increase. They are yet to see that enhanced salary. Now it's time for them, maybe that we could do that. I am after receiving a call this afternoon, Minister, from an ICU nurse in one of the country's biggest hospitals, and I mean the biggest hospitals. She informed me that nurses who have to self-isolate after being in contact with cases while in work are given a COVID leave payment. This is a flat paycheck, and they are not paid as normal working week. This nurse in particular, doesn't want to be named, is down €300 a week as a result, and that's a shocking amount of money. This is a kick in the teeth for our most valued workers, in my opinion, and needs to be reviewed. And I said it earlier, Minister, these are a lot of situations that have arisen unexpected, but we need to tease them out and try and work through them as fast as we can. Thank you, Controller.
I want to also, like others here, I want to offer my condolences to those families who have been affected already and who have lost loved ones. And other families as well who are sick as well. I mean, we all recognise that already this has hit home for some families much harder than others, and I want to offer my condolences to them and wish those who are unwell at the moment under treatment recovery and speedy recovery as best we possibly can. I also want to recognise that I think all of us are there to work as our TD's offices and Senators' offices and so on. We're there to help and assist people as much as we possibly can. I understand most people's offices are officially closed at the front door, but all the services goes on behind the scenes as well. So I think, and in line with a lot of other community groups, we're also there available to help as best we possibly can. And likewise, as ministers, we're open to any deputies that might have any issues they want to raise with us as often, just give us a shout as well. And I want to recognise the cooperation we've had in trying to piece together legislation in a fast way over the last couple of weeks, with suggestions, with amendments and so on. Where we can't accommodate everything, there's certainly been a lot of cooperation there from all involved in here, of all different parties and none as well. Also, from both myself and Minister Murphy, want to recognise the work that's been done on the front line by all those involved with our Department of Housing, Planning and Local Government. We see an awful lot of work going into the system over the last couple of weeks in preparation and putting plans in place to deal with all scenarios that might happen in the weeks and months ahead as well. We've had a lot of cooperation for a local authority level from all our NGOs, from all our various stakeholders. Our frontline teams are working with our homeless, our stakeholders, both private and public, when it comes to family hubs, when it comes to our hostels and so on. Everybody has played their part and got involved with us around the plans as well, and want to recognise that too, all the hard work that goes on there. Other ministers and TDs have mentioned other departments. I'll keep it to just housing for now as well, but to recognise there's great work going on there and being led through a local authority place as well. In relation to Part 2 of the Bill, the Bill provides for amendments to the Residential Tenancies Act 2004 to 2019 to prevent both tenancy terminations and rent increases during the COVID-19 emergency period. The aim here is to keep people in their homes. We need to restrict the movement of people to protect the health and lives of our citizens, and this bill will help to reassure tenants that they will not be forced to leave their home during the unprecedented emergency. No notice of termination can be served during COVID-19 and, except in exceptional circumstances, those served before the emergency cannot take effect until after the emergency period has passed. These emergency measures do not mean tenants can ignore their obligations. Tenants wilfully in breach of their obligations can be pursued by landlords, but only with the approval of the Residential Tenancies Board determinations they are to be, and they are in very extreme circumstances, and that still has to be allowed for. But generally, also those determinations would take generally up to 16 weeks to execute as well. Rent increases are prohibited during the COVID-19 emergency period. However, landlords and tenants are free to enter into informal arrangements to allow for rent decreases for the duration of the COVID-19 emergency. The bill defines the COVID-19 emergency period to be of 3 months' duration, but this period can be extended if necessary by government order. The legislation seeks to protect both tenants and landlords. Landlords accept that some tenants will face serious financial challenges over the coming weeks and months, and the landlord sector bodies have confirmed in recent engagements with Minister Murphy that they will work to support tenants to the greatest extent possible. The banks and in turn landlords recognise that forbearance is required, and Minister Donoghue has dealt with that on a number of occasions in the recent weeks. While tenants are legally obliged to continue to pay rent during this emergency, the Government is fully conscious that some tenants have seen a reduction in their working hours, some have lost their job, and others have been forced to self-isolate to protect their communities and in some cases have contracted COVID-19. The Government has made available a range of income and rental support to anyone in financial difficulty. I would encourage tenants encountering difficulty to first of all engage with their landlords and the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection at the earliest opportunity to seek whatever income and rental support might apply in their cases. And there's quite a lot of supports there, but naturally they're individual in nature as well. Section 3 of the bill provides for standard definitions, including a definition of the COVID-19 emergency period to be of 3 months' duration. The Government is empowered under Section 4 to extend this emergency period by order if necessary. Section 5 provides that a landlord cannot serve a notice of termination during the COVID-19 emergency period. Where a notice of termination was served before the emergency period, it cannot take effect during COVID-19, except in certain exceptional cases as outlined earlier. For tenancies of less than 6 months' duration, a tenant will now have 28 days as opposed to 14 days from receipt of a rent arrears warning from a landlord to pay overdue rent. Where the tenant fails to pay, the aforementioned tenant protections will apply, so the landlord effectively can only serve the notice of termination at the end of the emergency of COVID-19.
Thank you, Minister. The balance of your reply will be included in the official record. We're running over time.